Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Sacred Souls podcast. I'm Ariel Heather, and today I'm so excited because my friend and amazing evolutionary astrologer, Natha, is here today. So thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have this conversation because you and I have had some really amazing conversations just over the past few years. And so this will be fun to let other people in on what we always get excited talking about.
Yes. Yeah, and so we were trying to come up with a good topic, and I feel like a lot of people just see astrology as personality traits, but what they don't realize is that we can obviously, and we have been, using it for other things in our lives. So we wanted to just have a discussion today about how we can use our charts as a gateway to help us with more abundance and more love, because I know that all of us want more love and more abundance.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to talk about Venus. And like you said, we all want more Venus things because it's love, it's romance, it's abundance, it's money, it's self confidence, it's self worth. And Venus is an archetype that's woven through every day of our lives. And a lot of, well, I would say most of us tend to go into scarcity a lot when it comes to those things. We feel like we don't have enough of those things. And then we want more of them. And then there's this block of like, well, how do I get more of them? And so we're going to talk about that today.
Yes. Okay, and I know that Venus is retrograde right now, and I know that a lot of people listening, they might know that too, but it's not that this is the only time that it's important. It is like you were saying, it is always prevalent in our chart, and I think that there's just like these hidden gems and wisdom that you have where we can look at our charts in different ways and just kind of see how it could help us.
Yeah, I mean, we're under a lot of Venus astrology right now. And so you and I are recording this in April of 2025. But if you're listening to this in the future, you can look back and say what was happening for me in the beginning of 2025 and really the last few years. It's been like 23, 24, and 25 that these Venus themes have been so like in front of our faces. But Venus is always there. We're always kind of freaked out about money and like wanting to find love and worried like whether we're confident enough and whether we have what it takes and whether we have value. So Venus themes don't necessarily just get triggered at certain times of the year. It's like most of us are working with Venus themes all the time and really like wanting remedy for like how do I get out of scarcity? How do I get out of lack? Because it's like you can have a ton of money and not have love, or you can have money and love and still struggle with self-confidence. Like we're on an equal playing ground with our when it comes to our Venus. Even if we have a ton of what other people would perceive to be abundance, that doesn't mean that we feel it.
Exactly. No, totally. And yeah, so I guess just for starters, if someone has really never, if like they're just new to their birth chart, like where should they look first for these kind of placements with Venus?
Yeah, so you can just get a free astrology chart on a ton of different websites online. You can just Google, natal chart and get in there. And what you'll want to look for is Venus in your chart. What sign does Venus fall in and what house? Because one of the things that we're going to talk about today is that, we all have Venus, like we said, we all have our Venus issues, but we've all also been conditioned in our culture to what Venus things we want, right? So it's like you want $1 million in the bank and you want to be young and beautiful and attractive and you want to have a ton of popularity and a ton of followers, and these are the things that are going to bring you a sense of value. And we played that game for our whole lives because we haven't known any different. But one of the things that's cool about Venus in your chart is that it actually helps you set some of that old paradigm to the side and really get a handle on like, what are my values? What is abundance to me? Because that's part of what we're doing in this big transition in society right now is we're reevaluating our values. So the things that we were taught make us valuable, we are seeing like that is not actually true. And so the Venus in your chart can give you some really exquisite insight into like, oh, what actually is true for me and what do I actually consider to be abundance?
Right. And I feel like maybe that's also what the retrogrades can help us with, because I think they're what, like every 2 years ish. And I feel like what you were saying, it's like we think we want money or followers or all these different things, but then the purpose, or maybe like at least one of the purposes of it retrograding, is like, do we actually want that? Or maybe like a check in, like, is that where we're at now? Like, have things changed?
Exactly. Exactly. Because, it's going to be hard for all of us to just immediately pull back from all of that conditioning that's like, oh my God, you're driving a brand new Mercedes. That must mean that you've really succeeded in life. And we all perceive you as being full of success. And you're probably also great in love. And you're probably also feeling really worthy. So we like put these perceptions onto people based on what they have. But we're trying to sort of course correct. And that's one thing that we've been doing, especially over the last few years. We've been looking at really ultimately how those things don't actually lead us into a feeling of heart-centeredness, a feeling of being in relationship with abundance. Because Venus is, whether it's ruling Taurus or Libra, Venus is about cultivating a really strong relationship with what abundance is. And if we're thinking like, if only I could make enough money to buy a brand new Mercedes, then I'm going to feel worthy, and then other people are going to love me. That's not a heart-centered relationship to abundance. And, ultimately that's what we're trying to do, because that's where we really find that like satiation of like, oh my God, I can relax.
Right. No, I totally agree. So, what should people do, like when they're looking at their charts, or just like, let's say they are familiar with it? Like, what are some aspects or just some different things that they can do to kind of see, or maybe just like what houses it's in, just kind of like that could tell them what because I know that it could be whatever you want, but I feel like, our chart is like a blueprint of our soul. So, it's like maybe just looking at it as like these things could be fulfilling for you, or like these are more of the things you need.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. So, first of all, Google is always your friend, or ChatGPT. It's really easy to go in if you find out like your Venus is in Aries, to go in and say, like, what are Venus and Aries traits? However, because you're kind of gonna have to like turn it and apply it to yourself, and you're gonna have to think a little bit deeper than just keywords. But think, for example, my Venus is in the sign of Gemini, which says, like, ultimately, one of the things that I really value is good communication, clear communication with the people that I love, but also with my money, with my worthiness. So instead of getting really distracted and kind of feeling like, I have to say the right thing, or I have to present the right way and flirt in the perfect manner to get this person to see me, it's more about me being able to tune in and say, am I in a good communication with my money? Like, do I know where I'm at? Do I feel like it's a good symbiotic relationship? And of course, that's true for relationship too. But you can go in and use whatever keywords Google or chat gives you, and try to think about it from that respect, from that aspect of like, okay, so if my Venus is in Aries and some keywords are like passion, purpose, decisiveness, do I feel like I can like move into what I want? Can I decide that I want something and go for it? Like, how much are we embodying the energy of our Venus, and are we using it, right?
Yeah, and I know that my Venus is in Virgo, and oftentimes I meet other people with that, and I tell them, just kind of like what I've learned from that, and they always agree with me. So I do feel like, everyone's different, but there are like key words, like you're saying, and key themes that, like, I'm sure other people with Venus and Gemini, like you're saying, they probably can relate to what you're saying.
Yeah, like what would you say for your Venus in Virgo? What would you say is a really strong value that you've just kind of like more recently come to understand?
Well, I think that with Venus and Virgo, it's like I have to, when it comes to like love and money, like, well, especially money, like things have to be planned out. Like I'm not going to be impulsive. Same thing with love too. And that, the perfectionism, sometimes I would say that's the downside that gets in the way. And I also too know that like Venus doesn't like to be in Virgo, but with that being said, I just feel like a lot of Venus and Virgos, it's like we want someone to be, or we have like certain standards that we want things to be. And if like they're not like that, then we're like, okay, goodbye, for better or for worse.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good thing to think about too, is that all of these astrological archetypes, which the way that I teach astrology is that, we can use these archetypes to better understand ourselves, period. We all have Venus in our chart. We all have a sun and a moon and a Mercury. Like, we have every single thing in our chart. So we can choose whatever it is that we want to look at that day and say, hey, I want to understand myself a little bit better. In this case, we're talking about Venus. I want to understand my money. I want to understand my confidence, my worth. And I have to understand that, like, where I want to be, which is the high side of the archetype, is typically not where I am. So a lot of us we do rest down into the more difficult side of the archetype because we're here to learn, we're here to grow on this planet. So understanding, like, for me with actually, let's use a different, because it would be fun to just kind of touch in on everyone, so anybody that's listening.
Yeah.
We talked about Aries being like, I have to move into action, I have to be decisive, I have to move in my purpose. But the dark side of Aries is that, I can be really pushy, or I can be really demanding. And when I'm being that way, I'm probably not living into my real value. So, if we went into Taurus, and the strong side of Taurus, for Venus and Taurus, is that we want to be embodied, right? A value is like, am I rooted securely in my physical body? Am I allowing my body to tell me what is right and who is right? But the more difficult side of Taurus, if you have that placement, is that you can get really stubborn and really kind of, you can hoard and not want to share your love with anybody or share your money with anybody. And so we can go through every archetype and say, here's what you want, and here's where you might spend your time. And if you're trying to get more abundance, right, because that's what we're talking about today, is like, yeah, we want more. Here's what we want to look at. Here's what you want to look at and what you want to question about yourself, so that you can actually clear some space for what it is that you want, and you're not wasting all this time down here sort of acting out the shadow.
Right. I know, because I do feel like that's important to note, is that like each sign has its like high road and low road. So there's always, it's like different aspects. But one thing I wanted to ask you that I've noticed for myself, and I don't know if this is a thing that applies to other people, but when it comes to like love and money, like let's just say it's a relationship or maybe a business partnership, do you think that if the person that you're either working with or in a partnership with, has the opposite Venus sign, that it might be difficult? Because I know that, at least for me, when I've dealt with people who have the opposite, like when it comes to Mercury, I have my Mercury and Venus, and when I deal with people with Mercury and Pisces, it's like we're not communicating, like we do not understand each other at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so your Venus is in Virgo, so let's talk about Venus and Pisces. Venus and Pisces person is going to care a lot less about the plan and about having things organized and really succinct, like Virgo is. So anytime that you are dealing with, and this is true for any sign, if you're dealing with a sign that is exactly opposite from whatever your natal sign is, it's a balancing act. So it means that you are always going to have to do this dance with one another to come into balance. But the good thing about working with people that have oppositions is that you're both bringing a set of really powerful gifts to the table. And if you can figure out how to like dance together, you can both be amazing dancers, right? It's like you get the tango person and the ballroom person who are both amazing at dancing, and you put them together. It's going to take a little bit of time for them to figure out how to dance together, but when they do, it's going to be good.
Yeah.
So that's one
But
thing
so if
that I tell
someone,
people.
so if someone, like since we were talking about like abundance and love, so if someone does have a business and maybe they are going to, do business with someone with the opposite Venus sign, like it's still okay. And then do you think still it's not like it wouldn't work out? Well, I don't want to be that extreme that it wouldn't work out, but I mean, do you think that it's like, I guess you're saying just maybe keep in mind that just to balance it more, it's not like it's a bad thing. It's just more like trying to meet halfway, maybe.
Yeah, I think the bottom line is that we want to be self-reflective through everything. At this point on the planet, if you're somebody that's listening to this podcast, you already understand that self-reflection is a massive part of this transformation and this spiritual awakening. So the more that we're awake and aware to our own patterns and habits and tendencies, the better. It's not like we're going to find somebody that's a terrible match. If we're self-reflective, we're not going to stay with that person. We're not going to keep moving into something if we are aware that this person is not a match. Now, we might pull in somebody that is really different than us and causes us frustration, but that is just pointing us to growth. And I think that's another aspect of Venus, is that, we want to be in relationship with people. And Venus, as a ruler of Libra, talks about, I want you to like me, and I want to be attractive to you, and I want to attract you to me, and I want to do this partnership dance with you. And in order for us to do partnership together, we both have to be awake and aware to our own deficiencies and our own shortcomings, as well as our own gifts, because then we can do this dance of relationship together, which is what we do as humans. We are learning and growing when we're doing relationship. When we're doing awake and awareness in relationship, we don't have the tolerance to stay with somebody that's super toxic, business or romantic. And that brings us to another aspect of Venus, which is the self-worth and the self-confidence. So the more awake and aware we are, the more we're slowly healing and we're building up our confidence, right? It's like, God, I used to really care what that group of girls thought about me. And I would just contort myself and do whatever I needed so that I would seem valuable in their eyes. But those weren't my values, as it turns out. My value isn't in getting fake people to love me, even though we may have been there at one point. So it's like this beautiful, symbiotic dance where the more that we're self-aware, the more that we're healing, the less likely we are to have a really stressful relationship with money, or pulling in toxic partners and ignoring red flags, right? So it all goes together.
Right. And I'm glad to see that we're talking about it with abundance and when it comes to money, because I think that another misconception is people just look at Jupiter as the planet for money. And I'm not saying it's not, but it's also look at Venus too.
Yeah, I mean, Venus tells us a lot about where our shortcomings are going to be with money and relationship. And it also tells us a lot about if we get in alignment with our true values, how money will flow in easily and effortlessly. And then Jupiter talks about something totally different, right? Jupiter is where we are also seeking a form of abundance, but it's more about the expansion and the meaning of life. And that's one thing that we're seeing transition on the planet. And we can see how money and power have led to so much distortion and really dis-ease on the planet. And so all of us in our own little way, when we do our Venus work and we start to say, I used to feel like having that really expensive car or that really expensive handbag made me seem valuable. But what I've come to understand is that what's more valuable to me is having the time to spend with my loved ones. And if I'm working so hard to make money to buy the car, I don't have time with my loved ones. And so we are transitioning into working less and really moving into a direction that can feel uncomfortable, right? Because it's like, oh God, this feels weird. I feel like I should be working and scrambling and trying to be beautiful for that group, trying to be popular for that group. But the more of us that are able to start distancing ourselves from that, we are actually breaking the paradigm that has become such a norm on the planet and in this country, in the US, where it's all about money and power, but it's all empty. It's money and power that leads to total dysfunction and not caring about other humans and a lack of love. And none of us want to be in that vibration anymore. So it really comes down to are we going to do our Venus work? Are we going to understand that what we were taught actually isn't what abundance is?
Right. And I agree with you. I do think there's like a huge paradigm shift because I feel like, like even with like our parents' generation and stuff, it's like they were very materialistic, or it was like, the American dream with like the house and the white picket fence. And now even like, I'm not sure if you're on TikTok, but like there's all these trends that are on TikTok where it's like you say you're rich, but the video will be like you in nature, like seeing like a beautiful view, and it'll be like, this is what makes me rich. And so it's like, yeah, I do think that there is a collective shift from material things, and people are just reassessing what is valuable to them. And even like when I started my nomadic journey, like so many people were like, oh, I wish I could do that. And like, I wish I didn't have this job, or, and so it's like, you can do that. It's just all about choices. But I do think that people are leaning more towards, like you were saying, like working less and less about status and all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's, when you're getting familiar with what Venus is teaching you in your own chart, sometimes the answers that you're going to get are going to feel really boring, right? Like, oh my God, I don't want to have to focus on my health. I don't want to have to focus on my career, right? Because all of us, depending on where Venus lands, we're going to have a different point of focus. We're all like, no, I want to focus on being like beautiful and rich and fabulous, but that's not the truth of what it is. It is, can you pare down a little bit? Are you rich because you have a beautiful view? Are you rich because you can go stand outside in nature and let the sun hit your skin? Are you rich because you have the sweetest animals that just adore you? And, we're course correcting a little bit, because these are the things that we actually feel in our heart. And these are sun things when we start talking about the heart, and we start talking about who we truly are. We're learning, like, we are spiritual beings. We are not just humans. But in order to be spiritual beings, we are doing this heart connectedness. We're connecting in, and we're also discarding a lot of that old conditioning, which, some of it we get attached to, because it's like, well, I like nice things, and I like popularity, and I like people telling me that I'm beautiful, and, I like the thrill of new romance. We don't have to give those things up totally, but we don't want to just say, I will feel abundant when I have $1 million in my bank account, because that's veering off to the wrong path, right? It's going towards emptiness, and it's missing out on this whole rich, potent abundance that is possible in little small ways that really is what we're heart connected to.
Yeah, I love that you said that. And do you ever watch Bashar?
Not as much, but I do know who he is.
So, like, sometimes he just comes up on my TikTok, and there was something he said the other day about abundance that just like hit me so hard. And he was just saying that, and to them, or to infinite intelligence, the definition of abundance is having what you need whenever you need it. And so he was like, maybe that's not always money. Like, maybe it's something else, and that's like what you need at the time, and that is you being abundant. And I don't know, I just like listened to it a million times, because I was like, not that I only thought abundance was money, but so often we kind of connect the two. And so it just really made me appreciate more like the things that I have that like are not monetarily related, because I'm like, oh yeah, I do have abundance in like so many other things too, because I do have what I need like when I need it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I have clients who come in, and because life is very hard right now, these transitional phases are totally pushing us to growth, and confronting old beliefs is not easy work. So I'll have clients that will come in and say like, well, when is it going to get easier? Like, when am I going to feel abundant? When am I going to stop worrying about money? When am I going to find love? And I say, you're not waiting for some end point for like, oh, now I found love and I can be happy, or now I have all the money, I can feel happy. You're ideally looking for the abundance in every moment of like, right. Wow, it's freezing and windy where I am in Colorado, and I'm not outside in it. That's so abundant. Like, I'm sitting here talking to you, and thinking about things in that way really, I don't know, it opens you up for this sense of like, deep breath. Okay, I can relax. And Venus, as a ruler of Taurus, is so much about the safety and the security of, listen, I'm safe, I'm sound, and whatever I do not have, in this moment, I will be able to get. Right? I mean, I'll either have it soon or I'll be able to create it. I will be okay. And that's one of the things Taurus teaches us is you're going to be fine no matter
Right.
what, because you're strong and you're capable. And so when we start to see ourselves as more strong and capable, then we also become more self-confident and we see ourselves as more valuable without needing somebody else to, think we're
Yeah,
so
like validate
cool.
us. Yeah,
Yeah.
I totally agree. And going back to what you were saying earlier, so like I do like to give people tangible things to take away. So when they're looking at their chart, you were saying that wherever the Venus is, like in whichever house, that's kind of like not the lesson, but like the theme of, like where they should self reflect more, right? So, like, once they do find Venus, also to just see like what that house represents so that they can attach it to that area.
Yes, they would look at the sign that Venus is in, and that tells them some of the dynamics of how they're going to most relate to Venus. And then they're going to look at the house that Venus is in, and that's going to tell them the area of life that they're going to want to, make sure, like, that's what's going to generate abundance. So for me, I have Venus in the sixth house, which is the Virgo house, and that is about show up, be consistent, just follow a schedule. If I'm super scattered and nothing's going the right way, chances are I'm going to be like overwhelmed and I'm going to be like, oh, I'm freaking out. I don't have what I need. But my Venus is saying, look, you need to work on communicating with people that you love. You need to figure out how to connect with other people, and you need to be on a schedule. You need to be like doing things ritualistically, and then you're going to be able to access your abundance so much easier. And that has been true for me.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. So they'll look at that and then they could, if they don't know exactly like how to interpret their chart, they can just type it in Google and then they can see what comes up and maybe just do some journaling on those key themes.
Yeah, even if they just ask for keywords, I need some keywords for Venus in Pisces in the ninth house, and get a sense. And then you take that information and you really like just look for the nuggets. Like what of this 5 sentence description is actually resonating with me right now? How can I see myself in that? And then, at some point, if you as a listener get interested in astrology, I would say book a private reading with an astrologer. You can learn a lot through the apps and you can learn a lot through Google and using like AI, but there's something really potent about having an actual human that you can, explain what's going on and then have that human translating for you, because these maps, these astrology charts that we each have are so multidimensional. There's so much information that, depending on when you go searching for it, you're going to get just, boatloads of information.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love my readings with you. So yeah, people should book a reading with you. It's so helpful. And what about, I know something that sometimes people get caught up on is what if they look at their chart and they were born with Venus retrograde? Is that going to change anything for them?
No, the thing with any retrograde planet, and as you and I are recording this, Venus is in retrograde. So retrograde is basically an indication that you have to go back over old ground and you have to look back in your past to understand something. So that's why all of us are like, have questions about money and relationship and love right now and self-confidence, because we're going back and we're saying, where did I go off course? What did I miss that I need to see? So if you're born with Venus in retrograde or any planet in retrograde, it's because Venus goes retrograde so much less time than any of the other planets. It's like, wow, this is something important that I should look at. And it might talk about you needing to go into this life to solve problems with relationship and love that were generated in past lives, which of course you don't understand and you don't remember. But you just know, like, wow, the relationships that I have are probably very karmic. in nature. I've probably been in relationship with these people before. And if I have financial issues, I've probably had similar financial issues before, but I came into this lifetime to do better. So when you look and you're like, why am I in debt? Or how come I don't have enough money? Or how come I can't stop spending money? Or how come I keep pulling in the same person over and over, same issues, different person. This is your indication that like you need some personal work, right? This is like, oh, I need to find a therapist or a healer or an energy worker. I need to find somebody that can help me understand what this pattern is about. And, you know, your chart will give you a lot of information about that too. But we're here healing and we're here evolving. And the psychological, spiritual evolution that we're doing really requires, like I said at the beginning, this consciousness, this like being able to see yourself clearly and work with what's here, like the good, the bad, and the ugly. We're all capable of that. And the more that we have self-awareness on board, the less we get swept into like all of the fear and all of the propaganda and the conditioning and the brainwashing, which is really strong, right? I mean, we can just look at advertising as a real neutral version of this. Like, we are very easily advertised to, and we easily fall for things that we're advertised to because we're like, oh, that'll make me feel good. So
Right.
we're pulling back on allowing ourselves to be controlled by outside forces, but we have to have that inner witness that's really cultivated in order to do that.
Yeah. And I mean, since I'm all about empowerment, and I know you are too, that's like just, I think, one of the benefits of getting in touch with your chart and using it can do. Because, like you said, even if you did have Venus retrograde and like you are in debt, it's not like a punishment. It's like, okay, well, let's look at the chart and see how it could help me and give me information. And then we can empower ourselves to do the inner work and get ourselves out of it. It's not like you're stuck with it. Because I know that some people, you know, especially because of like the media and then sometimes people like TikTok astrology where they're just giving generalizations for everyone. It's like it doesn't necessarily apply specifically to you, like in your individual chart. And so sometimes people will be like, oh, well, if I have this, then like I'm doomed forever, or like this means this. And it's like, doesn't necessarily mean, I mean, it definitely doesn't mean you're doomed, but I'm just saying like once you have more information and more awareness, then you can, you know, take steps to change it.
Yeah, for sure. Stay away from any ideology that's going to make you feel like you're screwed, because that's really disempowering, and disempowered people are easily controlled. So we don't want to be that. But one thing that's so interesting when you start getting into your chart and you have like a skilled astrologer that can help you see things is like a lot of times the way that we think it's supposed to work, because that's how it's working for other people, is not the way that it's supposed to work for us. So like an example is I was doing a reading with a client, and the second house is the house of abundance in astrology, and it's ruled by Venus and Taurus. So the sign that's on the cusp of your second house can give you some information about how you are meant to pull in money. So we think, I'm meant to pull in money by working, right? And that's how everybody else is making money, and so I'm supposed to be working. But like in this client's chart, it was other people's money. It was being in relationship with other people. So when I said that to her, you know, you might have somebody else that supports you, and you're not supposed to work a 40-hour-a-week job. Or you might get a chunk of inheritance, and that's how you get the money. Or you might make a big chunk of money in, you know, 2024, and then not so much money in 5, 6, 27. So that's like a mind bender, because it's like, oh wait, it's actually okay if I have like a spouse that supports me, or it's actually okay if I don't work a 9 to 5. And yes, like absolutely, your chart has a lot of info, but if you don't know that, then you're like trying to force yourself, you know, you're the square peg that's trying to fit yourself into the round hole.
Exactly. Yeah, I think I could just give us permission to, you know, to be ourselves, because I know like with my Aquarius placements, I was talking to this client once, and he had this like 9 to 5 sales job, and he was saying how he wanted to do like all these different things, but he just felt like so conflicted. And I was like, oh, I'm just like wondering about your chart. And when I quickly looked at it, he had like so much Aquarius, and I was like, you're not supposed to be doing like what everyone else is doing. And when I like told him all of that, he was just like, oh my God, like that makes me feel so much better. And he was like, I've been feeling like there was something wrong with me. And I was like, no, like in your chart, like that's not, and I was just, so I feel like it can just give people that like validation that they needed.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the world doesn't work for all of us the way that we are taught that it works, because we can't do cookie cutter, which is Pluto in Aquarius right now is really reminding us that in any collective, you will not get everybody to agree, and not everybody brings the same gifts to the table. And a lot of times our gifts are going to seem really strange, like, oh, I'm supposed to be working 3 or 4 different short jobs instead of one long 30-year career. I'm not supposed to be in a career at all. I'm supposed to be at home, like tending to my family. Like the chart will show you very clearly these answers, and we're just starting with Venus. I mean, there's so many really beautiful things that require a reframe for each of us that our souls came to do, and especially right now, because if you're listening to this, you're probably a light worker. You identify as somebody that's here to change the paradigm, and that's what we're doing in our own little unique ways. It's like, oh, I'm not supposed to play that game of it's all about the expensive purse. Okay, I'm supposed to play a different game.
Right.
So then you get the invitation from your chart, and it's like, oh, I'm allowed to do that.
Right. Yeah, sometimes you just need that like little nudge to actually like go fully more into your authentic self.
Yeah, because like with Venus as a ruler of Libra, that's where we learn in adolescence to like follow the crowd. And what do we learn? Like the people that have the things that we want, the groups that have what we want, we're going to like try to fit in. And then we get into adulthood, and if we're really curious about abundance, we have to look at where we've tried to fit in, and then take a deeper understanding of like, where are we supposed to be?
Right.
What am I supposed to value here? Because it's probably not $1 million in the bank, or even the perfect long-term relationship. Sometimes we come in and we're supposed to clean up a bunch of karma with a bunch of people from our past lives, which means we're going to have a ton of different relationships. We're not going to be that couple that's like married,
right?
Sweethearts.
Yeah. I can only imagine the difficulty that Venus and Libra people have. Just from what you're saying now, it sounds like they must have a lot of the people pleasing and all of that, like more than maybe the average person.
Yeah, I mean, if you're listening to this and you have Venus and Libra, on one hand, it is a very attractive, appealing, beautiful sign. People will be attracted to you, and you will likely be a very popular, loved, sought after person. But the shadow is that you have to break away from just always wanting to stay that like perfect, popular, well-loved person, because you're going to have needs and wants of your own, and you're going to have to put down boundaries and say no, which is really hard, because it's like, if I say no, they might kick me out of the group. Yeah, they might. Then you've advocated for yourself, and you didn't want to be part of them anyway.
Right, exactly. Yeah, if they don't want you in your group, then like they're not the right people for you.
Yeah, so we're trying to figure out like what is true for me. What are my values? Because my values are not going to be the same as your values or their values. We might have some overlap, but we're here like trying to experience ourselves. So that's an interesting concept. Like, oh, and I have to figure out what I love and what I want, and who I am and who I want to spend time with, and what my boundaries are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's such a good point too, because the more that you know yourself and you know what you want, like the less you'll be swayed by other people's opinions, and the less you'll even care about what other people, if they did kick you out of the group or didn't like you, because it's like you'll be firm in what you know is good for you and like what's true for you.
Yeah. And the same thing for money, right? It's like when you start to really understand what your relationship is to money and what you value, then maybe you're not spending as much and going into debt. Or maybe you're not working so much so that you can buy a bunch of stuff that you actually don't need anyway. It simplifies things, but there is this huge bridge of understanding that we have to kind of walk through and experience, getting to know ourselves before we can say, well, God, I don't actually care that much about having all the money. Okay, interesting. I always thought I cared, but I don't.
Right. I know. And I think that's just, more prevalent these days too. And I think people are just having more realizations.
Well, yeah, and we have to, because clearly the money hungry has led to terrible power issues.
Definitely.
And when you think about the people that we know, that we hear a lot about, or even friends that we have on a personal level who probably have too much money, what kind of dysfunction is happening? Because a lot of like celebrities, it's like, oh my God, you have too much money and now you're bored and you're going into all of this really icky stuff. So we're seeing it, like, it doesn't even matter if you have trillions of dollars. That's really not, it's not leading to anything good anyway.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think that the money just amplifies like who you are already. So it's like if you were already happy with yourself, then like obviously that's a good thing. But if you're not, then it's just going to like amplify a lot of other issues until you take a look at that.
Yeah. And if we came in and we had every single Venus thing that we ever wanted and needed, we would get bored.
Right.
And getting bored is, it creates another problem in and of itself, but it also like doesn't push us into evolution. And that's what we came to this planet to do, is to evolve. We didn't come to just like, chill out on the beach for 7 days.
Right.
We came to like run into issues and problems, and it's when we have the problems, when we feel the lack, that we're motivated to work harder to find the security again, and we grow a lot. Like when you have to like work really hard, it builds muscle.
Right. Yeah, and Abraham Hicks, I don't know if you've ever listened to her, but she always says that, like things, that life is all full of contrast. So it's like we see what we don't want so that we know what we do want, and then we can just create, like it just helps us be more creative for what we want to have in our lives. So I always look at it as like it's not a bad experience. It was just like showing me, like now I know what I don't want.
Exactly. And that's the same thing with these archetypes. If we just look at that every zodiac sign as an archetype that is informing us. So when we catch ourselves on the shadow side of what our, let's say your Venus is in Leo. So your shadow side is like, look at me. Like, don't you guys see how cool I am? Like, do you like my outfit? Like, oh, hey, you guys, I have a story to tell. Like, when we're on that sort of obnoxious side and we take a minute and we say, why am I here? Then you can say, oh, I'm missing something. So what I really need, moving toward the high side of my Venus and Leo, is I need to see myself. I need to appreciate myself. Like, I'm doing a good job. I'm so cute. I love my outfit. It doesn't matter what other people think. It's like I'm finding the abundance right here within me. And that's what we're going for. It's like, how do we create the abundance that we need?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think we gave people a lot to think about, and I feel like everything you said was so informative, and I've personally now learned even more about Venus. Is there any like last, like if you just had to like sum up like the biggest takeaway you want people to have about Venus, what would it be?
Yeah, so when you find yourself in lack and you don't have enough, ask yourself some deeper questions of like, first of all, what is it? What am I really missing? Because when you start to dial past, like, what I wanted was to make $10,000 this month, and I didn't. But what does that really mean to me? Like, oh, I was equating my value with that money. And because I didn't make the money, I don't feel valuable enough. Oh, okay, interesting. So in order to feel valuable, what's missing? And you go a little deeper and you say, well, I'm not seeing myself clearly. I'm not honoring all of the hard work that I'm putting in. Oh, okay. Can you honor the hard work you're putting in? And you take a minute and you're like, yeah, I'm kind of a badass, actually. I've done a lot. It didn't make me
Yeah.
okay, but I've been, so the more that we come into just a deeper understanding of like what's really missing. What is it?
Yeah.
Is it literally the money? Is it literally the lover that we don't have? No. It's usually something that's deeper within us that we can meet. We can meet that need. And when we can meet our own need in that moment, that's like working your Venus, because then you're like, I'm so abundant.
I love that exercise and like those prompts because as someone who has so many Virgo placements like me, I'm so logical and I get so caught up in that. But I like what you're saying because I feel like that gets you out of the logic and really more into your heart and your body. And yeah, and I think too, because whenever I think of money, I think of like, okay, well, why do I want it? And to me, it's for freedom. So like that's what I like equate it to. So I think that's good to, get in touch with like, well, why do you even like it's not just so I can be like, oh, I have money. It's like literally so I can have freedom and do whatever like these things that I want to do. So
Yeah, and usually like our initial belief about money or love is completely distorted. Like we'll be like, well, I need to make, $100,000 a year. Like that's just what I need to make. And then if you had like a trusted friend, or it can also be your own higher self that says, why do you need that much money? It's like, well, like you said, I want freedom, or I want a sense of worthiness. I want a sense of safety. Oh, okay. Well, do you already have that? Like, do you have that actually without the 100,000 a year? And it's like, yeah, I'm safe right now. Okay. Well, are you free? Can you pretty much do what you'd like to do? Yeah, I'm pretty free. It's like we dial in and we realize we already have exactly what we think we don't.
right. Yeah. And I mean, I know some people like in more of like our parents' paradigm who actually like they could retire right now, like easily. And I'm like, oh, why don't you just retire? And they're like, no, I need to have more. Like I need more, but like they don't need more. But it's like I think they're just so like conditioned. But it's like they literally, if they retire tomorrow, like they would be totally like more than fine.
Well, yeah, it's that lack that becomes really familiar. And if you never go in and question the lack, then it's always going to feel like lack.
Right. Yeah, and probably too, like just connecting that to your nervous system.
Right. And people that are, many people, not all people, but people that are in older generations, they didn't have the training to go into that more self-inquiry. Now there are plenty of people who are in, like, for example, the baby boomer generation that have evolved a lot and can self-inquire. But it's largely something that the younger generations are more able to do just because it's more like in our culture. It's
right.
We talk to our friends and we're like, oh, here's this thing that we all do. But we have to be able to see our blind spots if we want to evolve and grow. And that's what all of this work is. It's like you and I both, we're doing the same kind of work with ourselves and with clients where we're helping them to see themselves more clearly. So they don't have to act out those old patterns without questioning them.
Exactly. And then they can make more empowered decisions with the information that they get.
Yeah.
Yay. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. And I'll put in the show notes your website and everything, but if you want to just tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me at electraastrology.com. I'm also on Instagram at Electra_astrology. And then I also do weekly videos on YouTube. I do astrology forecasts. So like you mentioned that you had a friend that wanted to talk about the energies of April. So you can find me on YouTube because I do cover all of that. And then
I'll link
I also
that too.
just do other teachings where it's sort of similar to this, where I'm helping you to connect with yourself through astrology.
Yay. And yeah, I highly recommend you guys have a reading with her, or at least follow her and connect with her, because she is just a wealth of knowledge when it comes to astrology, and she's helped me personally on my own path so much and continues to do so.
Yay. Well, this was so fun to talk to you. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you to everybody listening.
Yay. All right. Well, I will see you guys in the next episode. And again, if you have any questions, I'll put her information in the show notes and you can reach out to her.